Hi, my name is Manish Gupta, and in this video, I'm going to talk about DeciLM, the recently made publicly available DeciLM model. So, what is DeciLM? Well, DeciLM comes in two forms: DeciLM 6 billion and DeciLM 6 billion instruct. The DeciLM 6 billion model has a permissively licensed it's a permissively licensed foundation LLM. The biggest selling point about this DeciLM model is that compared to the Llama 2 7 billion model, it is 15x faster. So if you basically look at it, this is essentially throughput. So what you observe is that DeciLM 6 billion with a proprietary sort of or a super optimized inference pipeline essentially is 15 times faster compared to Llama 2 7 billion, and that is why it has become so popular. Another brother of DeciLM 6 billion is DeciLM 6 billion Instruct, which is a fine-tuned model, fine-tuned from DeciLM 6 billion for instruction following use cases. Okay. As I mentioned, the selling point is that it is 15 times higher throughput compared to Llama 2 7 billion model. The architecture for DeciLM actually was generated using automated neural architecture search engine. So Deci has this, the company Deci actually has this internal pipeline called as AutoNAC. And that's basically a neural architecture search method so as to find good architectures, right? So the architecture has been essentially obtained using this neural architecture search method. The specific part about its architecture is that it uses variable GQA. So now let's understand what is GQA, right? As you know, typical transform models have this multi-head attention. So they have QKV, query, keys, and values. You have multiple heads, and for each head, there is a query matrix, key matrix, and value matrix. Now, that basically is a lot of parameters, and therefore people came up with is essentially two kinds of frameworks. One is called as multi-query, and the other is called as grouped query. So in multi-query framework, the idea is that you will have several queries, one per head, but then the keys and values are essentially going to be shared. So keys and values are going to be shared across all of those heads. Okay. Yet another way of doing these things in between is called grouped query, where the idea is that you will have a query per attention head, but then you will have a key and a value for a group. So these keys and values are applicable to these two heads, and these key and value applicable to these two heads, and so on. Okay. Now, what DeciLM has done is to have variable grouped query attention. So it's basically going to use this kind of stuff, but it has variable grouped query attention. Now there are 32 queries per head, so that's fixed. However, some layers actually utilize four groups with 8 queries per group and only 4 keys and 4 values value heads per layer. Okay. Now, on the other hand, other layers essentially apply 2 groups. So therefore, you'll have like 16 queries per group, and you will have 2 key and 2 value parameters per layer. While on the other hand, some of them could be could basically just use one group and therefore have a multi query attention kind of a setup. Okay. So that is that. Now, so that's basically the first time that I have observed any architecture using this variable grouped query attention. So people use multi-head, people use multi-query, or people use grouped query attention. But this is a variable GQA, variable grouped query attention, which is specific in DeciLM. Um, Now, of course, the biggest gains are obtained when they coupled the DeciLM 6 billion model with the Deci's inference SDK, which is Infery LLM. That really leads to this 15x faster kind of throughput. The DeciLM model itself has been pre-trained on this dataset called as Slim Pajamas dataset, which is openly available on Hugging Face as well. So when you get this high throughput, does it mean that the model really does not perform that well? So are there performance implications? So to do that, they actually compared the DeciLM model with several other models like Llama 2 and also with MPT 7 billion Instruct, Falcon itself, and so on. So they actually also compared with MPT 7 billion, right? And so this row is DeciLM 6 billion Instruct, and this row is DeciLM 6 billion. Comparisons have been done across several data sets that you see here, right? And here are the averages. So what do you observe from the averages? So you observe that, well, DeciLM 6 billion Instruct is not as great as Llama 2, but it is very, very comparable, right? Extremely comparable. Similarly, DeciLM 6 billion by itself is actually pretty comparable to other models. For example, Falcon 7 billion Instruct or even Falcon 7 billion. So they are comparable in performance. It's not like DeciLM improves performance significantly or something, or neither does it lose performance. But then by performance, I mean accuracy here. But then from an inference perspective, the inference is 15 times faster. There are other comparisons. So this is again a comparison of DeciLM versus Llama 2 inference cost per 1 million tokens, right? So of course it assumes a particular kind of a GPU and so on. But as you observe, if you compare fairly, compared to Llama to 7 billion, DeciLM actually saves 95%, can potentially save up to 95% of costs when doing inferences. If you actually look at this inference cost in terms of yearly carbon emissions, then you observe that DeciLM can actually save a large amount of carbon emissions compared to Llama 2 model, and where these carbon emissions have been computed in a yearly manner across these two yearly manner for one model instance, comparing with Llama to 7 billion. Okay. So in short, DeciLM 6 billion is a permissively licensed foundation LLM. There is also an instruction fine-tuned version, DeciLM 6 billion Instruct. The biggest selling point about this model is that it is 15 times faster, 15 times higher throughput, right? 15 times higher throughput compared to Llama 2 7 billion model, 95% lower hardware cost, and lots of lower carbon footprint compared to the Llama 2 model per model instance yearly on a 10G GPU machine. Okay. From a accuracy perspective, well, it has comparable performance, comparable accuracy compared to the popular few large language models in the same size range. Okay. Okay, so that was a quick short video on DeciLM. Hope you liked the video. Thank you for watching. Connect with me on my LinkedIn or look at my research on my homepage.